Hey, welcome today to the Daily Show. Guys, we've got some breaking news for y'all. There's a lot of stuff that's going on with the country right now, and this is all about to be addressed. We've got Israel that we have stopped sending ammunition to them. We have the Donald Trump trials. We have where right now there's a lot of things happening at the border that all this is coming up, and this is all about to be addressed at the White House press briefing. We wanted to bring this news to you guys because this is stuff that is 100% going to affect everybody. We also have some updated information on the Ukraine and the Russia war that's happening, as well as what's going on with inflation. Right now, they just released a couple of days ago where the Fed just literally spilled the beans and said that inflation is not going down, that interest rates are not going anywhere. And so Biden is coming out to make some major changes so that he can win his presidential election again. So we are waiting on the White House to come. And when this happens, guys, all these questions get asked. There's a lot of things happening, and we wanted to be on here for you. Now, we do want to say thanks everybody for joining us today. If you are subscribed, thank you for subscribing. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. We want to serve you on a daily basis with all the daily top news. We are here to serve you right there. America first. We couldn't do this without our freedoms. Thank you to all of our vets, our veterans, and their spouses for all that you have done. We just appreciate all those that have fought for our freedoms. And the one thing that we always want to make sure is on this channel, we are American first. Not Republican, not Democrat, not independent. We are American first, and we will continue to push that. Right now, there's a lot of chaos happening. They just canceled the commencement speech at Columbia University. So everybody is going crazy right now. The reason being is because there's a lot of colleges that are that are divesting themselves away from Israel. So right now, the president is sitting in a hot seat. Because remember, he either appeases those that are for Israel or he appeases those that are against Israel. And the thing that's bad for him is that those people on essentially both sides, a lot of them are in the Democratic Party. And because of that, whatever he chooses, he's going to make people mad. And they said this could be the determining factor of why he will lose the 2024 presidential election. On top of, the economy being pretty bad in terms of like people, inflation, and interest rates. And there's even, guys, they're going to address this too. There's a lot of Democrats across the board that are saying that they miss the Trump years. Guys, I can't make this stuff up. This is literally happening right now. And so with that, all this is about to be addressed. Of course, guys, with the White House, they're always late to everything. They were supposed to start at 12:30 Central Time. They moved it to 1:15 Central Time. It is now 1:20 Central Time. I wanted to get on here and give everybody an update, a prelude to what they're going to be talking about. Again, they're going to be going over the economy and the additional stimulus that Joe Biden wants to throw out there. They're going to talk about essentially the Donald Trump trial, Israel-Iran war that's happening right now. Because remember, the Biden administration just stopped sending ammunition to Israel. This is rocking the entire Congress right now, guys. Everybody is up in arms. Everybody is saying, what is going on? Because with Iran hearing this now, they're saying that Iran is going to attack even more because now they know that the administration just stopped sending the ammunition that Israel was supposed to have. This is crazy. It's just insane to see this happening. We also got an update on the Ukraine-Russia war because right now, Russia is deporting every single refugee that's out there. And this is something that the hostages that we're dealing with, like all this is just coming undone. It's all imploding, and everybody wants to know what the White House is going to do. What are they planning to do? And then how is this affecting inflation? How is this affecting the stock market? All these pieces are coming into play, and that's all about to be addressed, and we're going to share that with you on this channel. I do want to give some quick shout outs to those in the chat. Also, guys, don't forget to like the video if you don't mind. It's free. It helps to grow this video. It helps to grow our channel. Again, if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. We want to deliver to you all the top news daily. We are here to serve you. Thank you, Lisa Shiflett, for being here. Michael Thomas, member of the channel. Good to have you here. Guys, thank you, Devin Hamilton, for being here. We have Chase, Indiana Scott, thank you for being here. We are, our country is in turmoil right now. We are facing things that we've never faced before. Never has there been an administration to pull back from the aid to Israel like what's happening. And so Republicans are on fire right now. There's a lot of Democrats that are on fire right now. A lot of people are mad even with what Bernie Sanders has to say. And he's a big proponent for Social Security. So a lot of people really like what he has to say. But at the same time, they're also upset with him, what he's saying over Israel. Let me know what you think about that, guys. But right now, we definitely want to figure out what is going to happen. Are we going to enter World War III? I'm going to post this into the poll. Will the world enter World War III this year? Because, guys, listen carefully, guys. Check this out. If we are in a war and there's an election, the sitting president stays. He doesn't go. They hold off the election and the president stays. Right now, Biden's poll numbers not looking so good. And I would hope that there wouldn't be a cause for a world war so that people try to keep out Donald Trump from becoming president. He is leading in the polls. He is leading by 6 to 9 points across the board with young people. Millennials and Gen Z are the biggest demographics that's going to be voting in this election, and he is winning by almost 6 to 9 points across the board in the polls with that demographic. And so with that, that's where we are seeing so much implosion within the Democratic Party that even Democrats are saying they are nostalgic for the Trump years, for the Trump economy, and how it used to be with the economy, how prices used to be with gas, how prices used to be with groceries. Guys, I just went to the grocery store and I bought some tomatoes. I bought 2 tomatoes. These weren't organic. These weren't special. They're just regular tomatoes. Cost me almost $5. Guys, my wife usually shops. And thank God, because if I did, I'd probably have a heart attack every time. But a lot of people are desperately hurting. And this is where Joe Biden is now throwing out stimulus. He's now throwing out more money to people. Social Security bills. We're right now, we're going to do the press briefing. But in a little bit, we're going to show you some videos about the new Social Security Fairness Act that now has over 320 sponsors. This just happened. Last week it was at 200. It was like 298 sponsors. Now it has over 320. Everything's being pushed to the front of the table to get this, to make this come alive, guys. And this is why. Why? Because we are in a presidential election year. 100%. If you don't mind, guys, please smash the like button. Let's continue to grow this video. Let's get this channel out there. This is an amazing community, guys. We couldn't do this without you. We are praying, like Carol, 100%. Carol Shuck, we're praying for peace. We're praying that, guys, our leaders make the best decisions for America. But right now, leaders are, no matter what they choose, no matter if they are for Israel or against Israel or whatever, especially within the Democratic Party, it is exploding within themselves. And this could not be foreseen. Columbia University just canceled their commencement speech. Imagine you are a parent of one of these students and they went to school for 4 years, 6 years, whatever, to graduate, and you paid $68,000 a year. And one of the biggest blessings of that is to see your kid walk across that stage, get that diploma, you take the pictures, and you celebrate. That's not happening. They canceled it. Why? Because of these anti-Israel protests. So this is literally just 100% blowing up across the United States. There's been over 2,500 arrests with all the universities and the protesters. There's been a lot of individuals that have been caught that were not students, that were paid to go to these protests, agitate people, egg people on, give people signs, and bring resources so that the protest could continue to go. This is a big problem that we're having right now, and this is 100% the American people are seeing the truth, that right now the United States is not in a good space. Everybody is about to see what's about to happen at this press briefing that is going to be addressed. This is supposed to be a big one, guys. Normally, press briefings, they're kind of like down here, you know, up, and it's about to start.
Hate-fueled violence. Now, of course, the two leaders spoke about our efforts to secure the hostage deal, including through these ongoing talks today. During the call, at the president's urging, Prime Minister Netanyahu agreed to ensure that the Kerem Shalom crossing is back open for humanitarian assistance for those in need. And I also want to take a moment to address the latest reports now out of Rafah, which was also a topic of discussion on the call. I'll reiterate again that we cannot and we will not speak for IDF operations, but we've made clear our views about operations in Rafah that could potentially put more than 1 million innocent people at greater risk. During his call with Prime Minister Netanyahu, the president again made this clear. He also made clear that we continue to believe that the hostage deal is the best way to avoid.
Remember, guys, we just had an attack. Hamas just attacked Israel. This is very bad breaking news. It's literally happening right now.
Biden hosted His Majesty King Abdullah II of Jordan for lunch at the White House. That probably wrapped up here just recently. They discussed the strong partnership between the United States and Jordan. They also spoke about the situation in Gaza, of course, including efforts to secure the hostage deal and to get more humanitarian assistance into the civilians of Gaza. Now, we're going to have a more detailed readout of that conversation here very, very soon. Just don't have it right now, but you'll be seeing it shortly.
As far as you can tell, which proposal did Hamas accept?
I'm not going to get into that, Steve.
And is the issue over how long a ceasefire would last?
Again, you're asking me for the parameters around the response and the deal itself, and I'm just not going to do that.
Lastly, Israel has called on people in Rafah to evacuate. Does that presage a full-scale assault? What are we seeing?
As I said in my opening statement, I'm not going to speak.
Israel has just told people of Rafah to evacuate. There's about to be, I mean, we can see Israel attacking the city of Rafah now. This is big news, guys.
We've been consistent, and the president was consistent again this morning, that we don't support ground operations in Rafah that would put the majority or even any of the civilians there at any greater risk. We want to see their safety and security allowed for and factored in.
Noting your caveats at the top, are you able to say whether Hamas was agreeing to something that had been discussed over the last several days?
Again, without getting into the details of it, and Director Burns is still talking to partners about this, there have been ongoing negotiations and talks here for weeks, and the director traveled recently to see if we can't bring this thing home. And again, without speaking about the details of the response.
If you don't mind, guys, please like the video. Let's get this out there. We appreciate it so much.
These continued discussions that Director Burns was part of.
And when do you think you'll have a better sense of what is happening? When will you get a readout from Director Burns? Later today, early tomorrow?
I don't know. The president has been briefed on the response. He's aware of where the situation, where the process is. What you're asking me is like, when are we going to get like a final, you know?
What is the answer?
Final table slap here. There's a process that has been worked in the past and will be worked this time. You get a response by Hamas. We're going to have to evaluate that. We're going to see what's in it. Certainly, the Israelis must have a chance to look at this and to evaluate it. And Director Burns, as we speak, literally as you and I are talking, are having these conversations with partners in the region. It would be great. I'm sure we'd all like to have an answer as soon as possible, but I just don't want to get ahead of that process.
And a quick follow-up on the readout. When do you expect the Kerem Shalom crossing to reopen, or is it already reopened?
It should be open very, very soon. Prime Minister Netanyahu committed to opening it on the call this morning. So at 2:30, is it open? I don't know. But he assured the president that it would be reopened. It had been closed for several days.
And one more. Cindy McCain, the executive director of the World Food Program, said over the weekend that northern Gaza is in a, quote, full-fledged famine. Is that the assessment of the U.S. government as well?
The UN has not declared a famine in Gaza writ large, but I don't want to understate the degree of need here and the dire situation that so many people in Gaza are in, particularly with respect to food and water. So it is not a great situation, clearly, and that's why, again, we're working so hard to get this deal in place so we can keep that humanitarian assistance up at a higher level.
I understand you don't want to get into the specifics here, but is it your understanding that this is Hamas's final offer? I mean, is there still room to negotiate here?
I think it's going to depend on our evaluation and the Israelis' evaluation of the response and where we go from here.
And as Steve mentioned, the Israelis are already warning people to evacuate Gaza. If they do go through with this operation, is the U.S. willing to consider putting limits or conditions on aid to Israel?
I won't get ahead of where we are right now, Mary, in the process here. And I'm certainly not going to speak to hypothetical operations that haven't happened yet. I think we just have
So what's just happened,
see
guys?
what transpires.
Biden admin pulled the ammunition we were going to send to Israel. Israel has told the city of Rafah to evacuate. Hamas has attacked the. They're saying there's a famine with Gaza.
Clear that the U.S. would change its approach, right? If Israel didn't take significant steps to address the humanitarian crisis, does that still hold? Is it possible that the U.S. could change course if the humanitarian process isn't improved?
Of course.
And
We always
presumably
we always have the right to adjust our policies as appropriate, and that has not changed, no.
And presumably an operation in Rafah would jeopardize steps to address the humanitarian
All I
crisis.
can say is we've been very direct and very consistent in our views of concerns about operations in Rafah.
Does the U.S. currently have any sense of whether Israel is inclined or not inclined to accept this deal?
I won't speak for the Israelis.
When the president and the prime minister spoke earlier today, was this specific framework discussed, and did the president encourage, put pressure on the prime minister to accept this framework?
You're talking about what Hamas says they responded to. So just so you have the tick-tock here, when they were talking this morning, we did not have news that Hamas had responded. So that news broke after the call. That said, as I mentioned in my opening statement, of course they talked about the hostage deal and the importance of getting it secured.
So you're saying when the two leaders spoke, Hamas had not yet
It would be
accepted
wrong
this
for-
framework,
yeah.
so the president would not have specifically asked the prime minister to potentially
It would be
accept
wrong
this
for you to conclude that the call this morning was about having the Israelis accept the Hamas response. The Hamas response hadn't happened yet.
Did he broadly encourage the prime minister to get yes to some sort of deal?
As he has consistently with Prime Minister Netanyahu, urged that we get this deal secured. But it wasn't a pressure.
Remember, they're in the middle of trying to get a ceasefire. The United States is trying to facilitate, being the middle person to get a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, but it's not looking so good.
Again, as we speak, and that's the forum for working out the parameters of it. But the president clearly talked to the prime minister about the importance of getting a deal done. Yeah.
And John, what is the president's position on a limited operation into Rafah?
I don't think I can answer it any differently than I did with Mary. We've been very clear that we don't support a major ground operation in Rafah, operations in general that put at greater risk the more than 1 million people that are sheltering there. And the question right now is a hypothetical. I mean, we're aware they dropped leaflets. We're aware that they're warning people to evacuate. I let them speak to their operations and to their intentions. Nothing's changed about what
Israel is ready to set a full-scale attack on the city of Rafah, telling over 1 million people to evacuate.
And the possibility of a limited Rafah operation is on the table. So I'm asking, does the president believe that Israel can execute a limited operation into Rafah while adequately protecting the lives of civilians there?
The president doesn't want to see operations in Rafah that put at greater risk the more than 1 million people that are seeking refuge there.
So you wouldn't support a limited operation into
I
Rafah?
think I've answered the question.
Francesca. Picking up on the timeline, so prior to Hamas saying that they accepted this proposal, what, as you understood them to be, were the sticking points for either Hamas or the Israelis in the deal that had been on the table?
I'm not going to get into that.
Okay, did it involve Rafah in any way?
I'm not going to talk about the parameters of the proposal that was worked before this Hamas response, and I'm certainly not going to talk about the response right now. I mean, I do understand the curiosity, and you guys are all asking exactly the right questions, all very fair. But I really do hope you understand that the last thing I would ever want to do from this podium is say something that could put this very sensitive process at greater risk. We are at a critical stage right now. We got a response from Hamas. Now, Director Burns is through that.
Guys, they have stated that whatever happens, if this is not executed properly, we could enter World War III.
The worst thing that we can do is start speculating about what's in it.
And one more thing on Rafah. What was your understanding why the Israelis were only evacuating part of Rafah at this time?
You'd have to talk to the Israelis.
Go ahead, Dan.
Thanks, Green. Thanks, Admiral. You've previously said several times that the ball is in the court of Hamas at previous stages of negotiations. Would it be fair to say now that the ball is in Israel's court?
It's going to depend on what the response actually says and the conversations that we have with the Israelis about where we go from here.
And just one other thing, if I can ask, I mean, do you have any sense that Israel is currently using this threat or the start of an operation in Rafah as a means of putting pressure on Hamas at this stage of the
Again,
negotiations?
you have to talk to the Israelis about their intentions.
Guys, if you don't mind, we're so close. Let's get to 100 likes, please. Only 5 away.
The White House surprised by Hamas saying that they've reached a deal or agreeing to the agreement?
It wasn't like we had a heads up about it. We knew that, as I said publicly, they had a proposal in front of them, and I was just reminded of the fact that I said many times it was ball was in Hamas's court. So we certainly knew that they had it before them, and we were waiting on word. We had hoped that there would be word very, very soon. We certainly hoped that there could be word today, but did we know the exact moment that Al Jazeera was able to break the news that Hamas had a response? No, we didn't predict that particular moment.
Are you encouraged that you are at this sensitive point? You've been talking about it's a very sensitive point, it's important.
We'll be encouraged when we get a deal in place and we can start seeing hostages get back with their families. That'll be encouraging.
And if I can, what role, if any, do you feel like the leaflets and the pressure of an evacuation or the announcement of evacuating? Do you
Guys,
think
this is big right here. This is big.
triggering Hamas?
I don't think we know that.
John, can you talk a little bit about the timeline as the administration understands it of those evacuations? How much time do people have to leave? Did you guys put any demands on the Israelis in terms of how those evacuations are to take place under the parameters that you guys have talked about?
We're asking questions of the Israelis about what their intentions are here and what the larger purpose of this evacuation is, and sort of where they're wanting to go. I think to answer your question, though, you'd really have to go to the Israelis and to speak to their military operations and plans. I'm not going to get ahead of that. But are we curious about the timing and the intent and where they're going? Yes, absolutely. And the president expressed our curiosity about that on the call today.
But more than curiosity, are you expressing what you want to see happen in terms of those evacuations, how they take place, whether Israel is prepared for people moving around within?
I would just say, again, without, I don't want to get ahead of operations that haven't happened. I don't want to speak for the Israeli military. I can just say that we don't want to see operations in and around Rafah that make it harder for
Guys, this is breaking news. It just happened 2 minutes ago. They don't even know about it. But this is from the Al Jazeera. Israel's war on Gaza Live. Hamas just said it accepted ceasefire proposal. So this is where they're talking about they don't want Israel to attack Rafah because if they do, this could throw everything out the window.
The risk to Palestinians in Gaza with a full-scale operation. Is the U.S. still aligned with Israel in its intention to eliminate the terrorist threat posed by Hamas?
Of course.
And is there any feeling that Hamas may be trying to trick the public in some way? You heard Israeli officials commenting on this latest proposal as a trick, and there's been a lot of pressure to Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead, sorry. I'm listening.
Well, there's been, pressure on the administration to make sure that the needs of Palestinians are being served, and that the U.S. support for Israel isn't, overhanded. And you had the report come out earlier today, or maybe yesterday, that the U.S. was potentially weighing withholding an arms shipment to Israel. Is there any concern that Hamas was trying to capitalize
Guys,
on
this
that
is the
public
big stuff right here.
pressure
It happened.
and, play a trick, as Israeli officials put it?
I mean, I don't think there's any possible way I could answer that question unless I got between the ears of Mr. Sinwar, and that's a place I really don't want to be. I think that is a great question for him. It's interesting. I stand up here and answer questions. Karine does. Matt Miller at the State Department, Pentagon colleagues, the President does. Prime Minister Netanyahu does, and the IDF military spokesman does. You know who hasn't answered a single question about his intentions and what games he might be playing or where he intends to take this? Mr. Sinwar, the head of Hamas. And I think it's high time that he answers some of these questions. And
Guys, this is hilarious. Do you trust terrorists, or do you trust people like that are, they're a known terrorist group? Let me know what you think in the comments, because right now they're supposed to have this ceasefire that just happened like minutes ago, was just released, and they're trying to figure out what's going on, but it's like, how do you make a deal like that?
as each day passes, their lives get further at risk. So time is really of the essence here.
Well, noting your answer, is it still a good idea to try to negotiate with terrorists then?
It's not like we sit down pie in the sky and say, hey, today's a good day, let's negotiate with terrorists. You got to negotiate with who you got to negotiate to get people back with their families. So frankly, if there's a better idea to get those hostages home with their families, I think we'd love to hear them. I just don't think there's another way to do it. There's no other way to do it, quite frankly. You got to negotiate through Qatar with Hamas to get those folks back with their families. I mean, that's the hard work of diplomacy. Sometimes it means you got to sit across the table from some really bad folks that you'd rather not have to talk to. But
Talking about negotiating with terrorists, Hamas.
we, of course, back there, right responsibility to go after the Hamas threat, to eliminate that threat. Now, look, Jackie, I've said many times here, you're not going to eliminate an ideology through military operations. But does Israel have a right and a responsibility to eliminate a threat that they suffered on the 7th of October? 100%, absolutely they do. And we've been nothing but very steadfast on that.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks, John. Speaking about a TikTok, what prompted this morning's call?
I think you've heard me say many times, they talk as appropriate. And given where we were in the hostage deal negotiations, given where we were with humanitarian assistance and Kerem Shalom being shut down for several days, certainly given where we were with expectations in Rafah, this made all the sense in the world for today to be the day that the President and Prime Minister Netanyahu speak.
But when exactly was the call set up? Was it this morning? Was it yesterday after the rocket attack that killed the 3 Israelis? Or what?
I would tell you the initial planning for the call took place late in the weekend.
Remember, guys, we had Hamas who attacked Israel, killed the 3 Israelis. Now they're trying to call for a ceasefire, but they're saying, should we be negotiating with these terrorists? Because at the same time, Israel is literally telling people of the city of Rafah to evacuate because they're ready to send missiles there.
The specifics of one shipment over another.
NBC is reporting that it included 2,000 pound bombs that may have been used in Rafah. Did concerns over Rafah and what the Israelis could use this ammunition for, did that play any role in halting that shipment?
Don't have a better answer for you other than the one I just gave you.
I just want to go with that question one more time. Did the United States put a pause on an arms shipment to Israel? Is that reporting correct?
I'm not going to confirm that reporting.
Okay. Just on another topic. Well, same topic, different question. Over the weekend, the Queen of Jordan said in an interview that the United States is giving the world mixed messages, and offering both expressions of concern and support for Gaza, in addition to.
Guys, didn't I tell you this earlier, how the president is stuck between a rock and a hard place?
On her criticism or her critique of the United States position?
I'm not going to, I don't think it'd be appropriate to get into a back and forth here from the podium on this. We have said that two things can be true at once, and they are. Israel has a right and a responsibility to defend itself, and we're going to continue to provide for their security and help them with that. And at the same time, they have a right and an obligation to be careful about civilian casualties and getting more humanitarian assistance in. And that's why
Guys, I just put a poll out. Do you trust the Biden administration in what they say?
The President of the United States continue to lead the world in terms of actually making a difference in that outcome, making life better for the Palestinian people. No other country is doing more than the United States to try to increase that assistance and get this ceasefire in place.
And just really quickly, the Israelis stopped broadcast of Al Jazeera over the weekend. Can you comment on whether that's an appropriate action for a United States ally?
We don't support that action. As we said very clearly on World Press Freedom Day on Friday, I know Karine talked about this, the work of independent journalism around the world is absolutely vital. It's important to an informed citizenry and public, but it's also important to help inform the policymaking process. So we don't support that at all.
And did the president bring it up at all in his call?
The focus of the call was on the hostage deal and on Rafah.
I'm going to give it to
But
Al
you saw
Jazeera.
I think I put a statement out this morning on that, so we have officially reacted.
Guys, the United States is upset with Israel or certain things. We've pulled back at ammunition that we were going to give them. There's a lot of stuff happening right now. This is not looking good on any side.
The freedom of press here in the United States and across the globe, and then this decision came, and it was really a big shock.
As I just said, we don't.
Raise this issue with the government of Israel.
We have raised this issue, and I made a public statement about it.
And on Rafah, has Israel presented or provided the administration with a comprehensive plan for Rafah until now?
No.
Good.
I want to take you back to this report on whether shipments were paused.
Okay.
Are the reports wrong?
I'm not going to confirm the press reporting, Ed. What I've said is our security commitments to Israel are ironclad. The president pushed very hard to get that supplemental funding so that we can continue to help Israel with its security needs. And
You can appreciate the ambiguity makes it sound like it's true.
I can't.
If you didn't hear that, guys, the reporter said, please confirm the ammunition was paused sending to Israel.
What is the definition of a assault or attack on Rafah in the view of the White House that would be seen as impermissible?
There hasn't been an assault or an attack
reports
in
tonight
terms
that
of
there
a
are-
ground operation at this time, so let's not get ahead of where we are. President did express, again, our concerns about operations in Rafah that would put at risk these people trying to find shelter there. I think it would be a futile exercise for me to get up here and give you a laundry list of what would or would not compose some kind of ground operation in Rafah. We have to, well, let me put it another way. The IDF has to speak to what their intention.
Remember, the Israel is literally passing out leaflets to people telling them to evacuate Rafah. They're about to attack. Also, please, if you don't mind, smash the like button, guys, so we can keep making YouTube happy.
Missiles or rockets, things that kill innocent people, that's not okay. And again, the president made it clear that we don't want to see operations in Rafah that put at risk those 1.5 million people that are there.
How does the president assess Bill Burns' ongoing attempts to make sure this deal comes together?
It's a nice side way of getting at sort of talking to the parameters of the deal. I appreciate that. He's very grateful for.
I was more genuinely interested in what he thinks of the CIA director's work on this. Yes.
Excellent. I'm sorry, I impugned your question. Look, I think he's very grateful for the work that Director Burns and the whole team has been doing to try to get us to this point. But it only really matters if we can get the deal in place, and I'm sure Director Burns would agree with me on that. And those hostages can get home. But he's done terrific work thus far, and I know that he wants to see that get this across the finish line just as much as we do.
Thank you, Karine. Admiral, on a different topic, reports breaking just the last few minutes that a U.S. soldier has been detained in Russia. This apparently happened in the last few days. The reporting is he had been stationed in Korea, traveled to Russia on his own. He's being accused of some sort of theft. Is the administration aware of this report?
Yes.
What can you tell us about what happened?
I can't really say much about it right now, Jonathan. I hope you can understand that. And certainly it's a better question put to our DoD colleagues, but we are aware of this case.
And another matter just related to Russia, there's been threats from Moscow in the last couple of days about striking British military facilities because of and also simulating nuclear drills as it sharply rises tensions because of weapons manufactured in the UK being used.
Guys, this is what I was telling you about Ukraine, Russia. This is big news right here.
Well, what I'd say, number one, is it's just reckless and irresponsible for the leader of a major nuclear-armed power to be saber-rattling the way that he is with respect to potential use for nuclear weapons. Obviously, we monitor this and have continued to monitor this very closely. I can tell you we've seen nothing, even despite the reckless rhetoric, that would cause us to change our strategic deterrent posture. And look, lastly, if Mr. Putin and Russian officials are worried about their troops in Ukraine getting hit with weapons from other countries, then the easiest thing to do is just take your troops and leave.
And guys, just to let you know, Russia actually has just a little bit, has about 500 more nuclear missiles than the United States does. They have the most in the world. They have more nuclear weapons than any other country in the world. Russia.
You know something I don't know. I haven't seen those reports. I can't confirm it. I'll just go back to what I've said, I don't know, half a dozen, if not more times today. We don't support operations in Rafah that put people at greater risk.
Thank you, Colleen, and thank you, John. I just wanted to make it clear that regarding the limit on the refined petroleum provided by Russia to North Korea, the annual refined petroleum limit under UN sanctions against North Korea is 500,000 barrels. But last week you said that the limit was exceeded at 165,000 barrels in March alone. So how many barrels were supplied in January and February?
I will have to take that question and get back to you. I didn't bring the barrel data with me today.
Remember, guys, China, North Korea, Russia are together. The United States, European Union, and Israel are together. And sanctions against Russia are being subverted through North Korea.
By the UN is currently staying in Chinese water. So is China include the sanctions this time, or sanctions against Russia and sanctions against China altogether?
I will admit that I will owe you now yet another answer. I'll get back to you with something more detailed. I will only just say, to exit myself from this question gracefully, that we want everybody to enforce the sanctions that are against North Korea appropriately and consistently. And not everybody does. And North Korea has benefited from sanctions evasions by countries in the region and beyond the region. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. We're going to start wrapping up.
Thank you very much, Colleen. Thank you very much, John. I had a question on Russia and growing ties between China and Russia. Putin is reportedly visiting China this month, and right before this visit, just last week, we learned that Russian police raided the homes of Falun Gong practitioners in Russia. This is a group persecuted in China, and detained several of them. Does the White House have any reaction to this? And I have a follow-up on
I haven't seen the reports about the detention of these individuals.
She just said Russia, Putin is meeting with China, and what's going on with those two relationships.
Than I can. Just again, writ large, we have seen China and Russia try to grow closer together. We believe a big reason for that is, frankly, the United States and putting themselves in positions to either oppose our foreign policy objectives.
I told you guys, I called it.
To them in many different ways. So it's concerning to us. The most specific concern that we have right now is the fact that some Chinese companies are providing microelectronics and components so that Mr. Putin can continue his defense industrial base improvements and developments and put weapons in the field that just kill innocent Ukrainians. And again, we've been we've made those concerns clear directly to our Chinese counterparts and at the UN.
Jared?
Yeah, I did want to ask, Just a clarification first on the King's visit. Is he meeting with any other senior Defense Department, anybody?
Not that I'm aware of.
So this wasn't like a broader bilateral kind of?
No. The president hosted them for lunch. They've done this before in the past.
And secondly, can you give us
I can't, but look, I can't speak to his whole schedule while he's in town, so I'm not aware of any other meetings, but that doesn't mean that he's got something.
Broader bilateral here at the White House? No. And on the pier, the temporary pier, if you could give us an update on that and whether or not like a ceasefire would need to be in place for that to be fully implemented and operational.
A ceasefire doesn't have to be in place for the pier to operate. Now, obviously, it's a whole heck of a lot easier if there's no fighting going on, but it doesn't have to be. In fact, one of the big issues that we are still working out is what the force protection laydown would look like and how not just the people operating the pier, but the material itself can be safe from any attack. As far as I know, and again, you should go to the Pentagon for more detail, essentially the pier itself has been constructed. It is not in place because last week they had some weather issues in the Eastern Med, so they weren't able to put it in place. You should go to the Pentagon for like where it is right now. As I understand it, it's still not being put into place. Then you got to anchor it, and you've got to make sure you build a causeway so you can get to and from it. So there's still a lot of work that has to be done to get it operational, and that would include the force protection laydown. But no, the short answer to your question is you don't have to have a ceasefire in place to use the temporary pier.
Thank you, Admiral.
Thank you, Kareem. Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks. All right, I do have a couple things at the top. We wanted to get to the Admiral at the beginning. So tomorrow, the President will deliver remarks during the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum's annual Days of Remembrance ceremony. You can expect the President to make clear that during these sacred days of remembrance, we honor the memory of the 6 million Jews killed in the Holocaust, and we recommit to heeding the lessons of this dark chapter never again. He will speak to the horrors of October 7th, when Hamas unleashed the deadliest day for Jewish people since the Holocaust, and he will speak to how since October 7th, we've seen an alarming rise in anti-Semitism in the U.S., in our cities, our communities, and on our campuses. The President will touch on how his national strategy to counter anti-Semitism is putting the full force of the federal government behind protecting the Jewish community, and that all Americans must stand united against anti-Semitism.
And guys, we'll be streaming the President speaking tomorrow over that.
Right to free speech, but there is no place on any campus or anywhere for anti-Semitism. There is no place for hate speech or threats of violence against the Jewish people. Next today, as part of the Economic Opportunity Tour, Vice President Harris is traveling to Michigan to announce $100 million in funding and resources for small and medium-sized auto manufacturers and auto workers. The Vice President will also announce actions to expand workforce training and improve job quality in the EV supply chain. For decades, trickle-down economics drove manufacturers overseas. Thanks to the Biden-Harris administration's Investing in America agenda, companies are making historic investments in EV battery supply manufacturing. More than 20 auto and battery plants have been announced after no net new plants opened under the previous administration. Historic contracts secured by the UAW and the Big Three automakers in Detroit, as well as recent organizing victories like Volkswagen in Chattanooga, Tennessee, ensure that these jobs of the future will provide comparable wages,
Let me know where you're
retirement
at in the chat.
security, and respect at work. These actions build on the Biden-Harris administration's ongoing work to ensure that the workers and businesses that built the auto industry remain community anchors for generations to come. And finally, I want to acknowledge some important news. While the previous administrations oversaw the largest one-year increase in murders ever recorded under this president's leadership, President Biden, violent crime is at a nearly 50-year low. Thanks to the extraordinary efforts of law enforcement and community leaders, Americans are safer from violent crime today than they were a year ago. Violent crime declined across every category in the first quarter of 2024, and murders are down 17%. Let me be clear here, this reduction in crime is no accident. President Biden and his administration are taking historic action to make our communities safer and give our law enforcement officers the tools they need to protect and serve. We are stopping the
Guys,
flow
I
of
got some
illegal
good data for y'all to
and
see
making
after
the
this on
largest
what you
ever
just said on the
federal
violent
investment
crime.
in fighting and preventing crime through the American Rescue Plan, which every Republican in Congress voted against. But we can't stop now. Through the Safe America plan, the president is calling on Congress to invest $37 billion to support law enforcement and crime prevention. Every family deserves to live in a safe community. With that, Songmei.
You had another school, Columbia University, announced this morning that they're canceling commencement ceremonies. I'm wondering if the White House is concerned that the situation on college campuses is not calming down, despite what the president said last week.
Protests are not calming down. They closed
what the president
Columbia for the
said
commencement
from last
speech.
week, as you laid that out for me. And here's a quote: "Peaceful protest in America, violent protest is not protected. Peaceful protest is. It's against the law when violence occurs. Destroying property is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Vandalism, trespassing, breaking windows, shutting down campuses, forcing the cancellation of classes and graduations. None of this is a peaceful protest." And it is unfortunate that a small group of people went too far and cost their classmates this important event. We've talked about it many times from here. When it comes to commencement day and when it comes to speaking at commencement events, this is something that the president has done for some time now, and he understands that this is a moment of joy, a moment of celebration, and we feel for them. We feel for each of the graduates.
Imagine being a student after 4 years, you don't get to walk across the aisle, or being a parent who paid for all that and can't see your kid walk across the aisle.
To do, but we do feel for them. These are graduates who are going to miss out on an incredibly important day of commencement.
Quick follow-up: does the White House anticipate any issues, or how are you preparing for any potential issues when he delivers the remarks at Morehouse later this month?
So, look, I'm not going to get into. I'm not going to speculate on what might happen, might not happen. Obviously, when it comes to any type of, when it comes to events and security, that's something that Secret Service obviously is going to deal with and figure that out on their end. But I'm not going to get into speculate from here. I'm just going to reiterate what I just said about how the president truly enjoys doing commencement speeches. He understands how important, not just for the graduate, but the families and the loved ones that are there to celebrate a really, truly important day. And so that's what we're looking forward to. As you know, the president's also going to go to West Point and honor those who serve to protect our country. And we'll continue to do that, obviously. And so that's what he's going to look forward to, really being there for the graduates and lifting them up in this moment.
Thank you, Corinne. Congressman Ro Khanna said that the president should and will be out visiting these campuses amid the protests. Is there any plan for him to get out there and talk to students right now? Okay. And then separately, GW's president has called for Metro Police in D.C. to intervene to dismantle what they've deemed an illegal encampment. And D.C. police have so far refused to respond to that call. It's happening in the president's backyard. Is there any reaction from the White House on what should happen?
So that is something that I'm going to leave to the local law enforcement and the university.
Isn't it amazing how they don't have any answer for something that's literally happening in their own city? This is crazy. An encampment, they ask for the police's help, and they're not helping them out.
Dissent cannot lead to disorder. And so going to continue to be very, very clear, as the president has been, as I have been, and so many of us here in this administration has been.
Any idea why D.C. police would not respond to this call?
I would refer you to the D.C. police. That's something for them to speak to.
There's a big difference between protest and encampment.
On these reported plans for the U.S. to bring over Palestinian refugees potentially, is there anything you can tell us about where we are in the works with that? And what I know it would depend on coordination with Egypt, which so far has been resistant to cooperate on this. What can you tell us about those plans?
I don't have anything further to announce. I know I was asked this question a couple times last week, just don't have anything else to share.
The speech tomorrow, is it a broad brush speech, or will he get into some of the specifics of the Gaza conflict?
I'm not going to get ahead of the president too much. Obviously, it is a day of remembrance. You know the term. We, as I just stated at the top, never forget or never again. And so certainly the president will talk about that day and how horrific it was for the Jewish Americans, Jewish community. I just don't want to get too far ahead, but obviously it's an important day for not just Jewish Americans, but Americans more broadly.
Thanks, Corinne. Given the key role that Jordan has played over the last several months in the Middle East, especially on humanitarian aid, and the day's developments, there was obviously a lot of news value to the King's visit today. Why didn't we see the President and the King together for a photo op? Why was that closed press?
So look, we try to do everything that we can, obviously, to give you all as much access, give the press as much access. It is sometimes the visitor, the visiting country.
I know L.A. Walker says they don't have answers for anything. That's what it feels like. We did get some news, though, when it came to Russia, Ukraine, and Israel, but Kareem really doesn't say anything.
At every turn at every of these events to make sure that there is press access. In this particular instance, it was a private lunch, and we tried to also accommodate the visitors that come here as well.
Did not want to do anything on camera.
I would leave it up to the King and his team to speak to that, but again, we try to also accommodate the visiting country as well.
And if there's any news from the Israeli side on this, where things stand, should we expect to hear from the President today or this evening on this?
I don't have anything of note or any changes to the President's schedule at this time. Obviously, if there are any changes, you all will be one of the first, if not the first, to know. I just don't have anything at this time. The President was going to speak tomorrow, so stay tuned. Okay, go ahead, Annie.
Thank you. I just wanted to go again at the speech the President is giving tomorrow. I mean, just given the context in which he's giving it, where there's, 34,000 people have died in Gaza. He's going to be talking about never again and a genocide. And he's protested almost everywhere he goes, with that moniker of Genocide Joe. And it's I'm just wondering,
Guys, have y'all heard people call him that Genocide Joe? That's the first time I've heard of it.
A genocide that happened quite a while ago. Well, there are some people who are saying that there's one happening right now that he bears some responsibility for. And I understand that that's not the view of the administration, but it's still a very tricky line to walk. And I'm just wondering if you can share any sort of thought as to whether he may be trying to send a subtle message with this speech at all, or if there's any sort of nod to the broader context in which the speech is being
So I'm going to let the President speak for himself. I gave a broad stroke of the day and how important it's going to be.
I don't think she understands what her job is.
Day of remembrance, the ceremony. So just going to be really mindful there. On your broader question, look, the President understands that this is an incredibly painful time. And we have said that over and over again, and we understand that. And he also respects the right of all Americans to peacefully protest. And also with the understanding and the knowledge of having those conversations, those sometimes really tough conversations with community leaders. And we have done that on the White House. You've heard from senior White House officials, or you've heard us talk about senior White House officials going across the country having those conversations with Muslim leaders, Arab leaders, Palestinian leaders in talking through this painful moment. And I would also say that this is why this hostage deal is so important. This is why we continue to work around the clock. This is why Director Burns is there, continuing to meet with partners.
Guys, this hostage deal is no joke. Like, there is a ton. It is sickening to think that we haven't done something yet, but hopefully they'll do something soon.
Make sure that we get the hostages home, which also American hostages are part of those hostages, and we need to get them home to their loved ones. So that's what we're going to continue to do. The President will speak for himself tomorrow, so I would say tune in, listen to what he has to say. But we understand how painful this is for many, many communities across this country. Thanks.
Input from any of those communities that you mentioned, like as he's been sort of wrestling with the speech and working on it, have any of those communities had any input into what you should say or what to...
I can't speak to that question about input from communities, but the President understands how important this moment is. And I would say this is a president that tends to meet the moment when it comes to speeches and remarks like these. He understands what's going on, has his fingers on the pulse as far as what people are feeling. And so just not going to get beyond that, and I would say tune in. Go ahead, Gabe.
Just really quickly, what's your response to Kristi Noem's comments implying that commander should be put down?
Look, you know, when we learned last week, obviously like all of you in her book, that she killed her puppy, you heard me say that was very, very sad. We find her comments from yesterday disturbing. We find them absurd. And here, this is a country that loves dogs. And you have a leader talking about putting dogs down, killing them. And that's a disturbing statement to say. I would say to her is she probably should stop digging herself in a hole. Thanks, everybody.
Where is Commander now?
Oh.
All right.
So Commander, we said this back in the fall, Commander is living with family members.
Where? Delaware?
In Delaware, yeah, in Delaware, yes. We said this before. All right, thanks, everybody. See you
Alrighty,
tomorrow.
guys. You just heard. Let's do a recap over what we just heard, because there's lots of stuff happening across the world right now. So Hamas they attacked Israel. They killed 3 Israelis. Then they came out and said, we are open to the ceasefire. But Israel is literally handing out leaflets telling people to evacuate out of Rafah. They're about to attack that city. The United States has told Israel, don't attack, because this could implode, create World War III. This is a big deal right now. The Biden administration is said to have stopped the ammunition that we were sending to Israel to help them with the fighting against Iran and Hamas. So we're some big, huge news with that. Russia, Ukraine. Russia has been is meeting more with China right now and building that relationship. Right now, they've also been going through houses and pulling people out and just putting them in jail that were associated with a certain group. This is like literally just crazy to hear this stuff. We also heard that the president had a phone call this morning with Netanyahu that was just right out of the blue. They're talking about what's trying to go on, because right now the Palestinians and the Israelis, the Biden is stuck between a rock and a hard place, because he is we've always aided Israel, but you've seen all these anti-Israel protests across the United States for Palestine, and this is all coming from the Democratic side. And so he's Democrat. He's stuck between a rock and a hard place. He doesn't know where to go. And so this is literally dividing the Democratic Party. A lot of people are saying now that this is what's going to make Trump win, is because the Democratic Party is divided with Biden, because he's not chosen a firm side in who he is going with in determination of either choosing to go Palestine or choosing to go for Israel. So with that, this is big, big news. All this stuff just happened literally minutes ago. This is breaking news, but that's why we're here, guys. We want to give you the updated news on what's going around the world. They also stated that Biden has given $100 million into car companies in Michigan, small and medium-sized businesses, to help stimulate the economy. And then they've also talked about, there was one more point, he's going to have a commencement speech tomorrow to address the Holocaust and all that. We're probably going to stream that live. We want to hear what he has to say about that. We need to, and paying our respects to those people that were unfortunately lost in that horrendous endeavor by Hitler and all that stuff. But again, too, we're keeping you up to date, guys. Thank you so much. We are going to have in about 25 minutes, 30 minutes, we're going to have another daily show, because there's a lot more breaking news going on. We got a lot of videos to show you of what's happening. You need to hear this, because this is going to affect your pocket. We're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars that you're going to have to pay more in taxes. We got all this stuff to show you. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. We want to continue to serve you on a daily basis with all the top news. America first. If you love America, smash that like button. We always say, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat, we are American first. Y'all have a great day. I will see y'all in a couple of minutes.